But anyway, join me on the line right now. He is a fantasy football writer for Fantasy Sharks, and he comes here every Thursday night when it comes to fantasy football as we're getting started for Week 10 of the NFL season. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, as always, Mr. Walton Spurlin to the program. Welcome, Walton, and how are you doing?
Shawn, I am doing well. I'm doing well in what has been kind of a crazy week, and happy to have the chance to talk some fantasy football. As, like you mentioned, we head into Week 10. Seems like a lot of the discussions this week haven't been too sport-oriented, so this is a nice chance to welcome back the NFL and hopefully have another great week of action and fantasy success.
Well, let's hope that does happen. And on Monday, by the time they was going to go to halftime, I almost fall asleep. By the time it was the second half, I was like, oh, don't tell me this is going to be bad. But barely Seattle won that game.
Yeah, and there was some bad officiating in that game, and that seems to be sort of the norm this year. They're going to have to take a look at maybe having full-time referees, not part-time, but just some of those calls, the field goal fiasco at the end of the half. I mean, that altered, the outcome of the game as far as what the score differential was in the game for Buffalo. So, and they just seem to botch that on so many levels, and that's tough. That's a couple of, if you're a fan of the Bills, to see your team fight hard and lose because it just seemed like the officials were way off. I just think that's something they need to look at, as well as these Thursday night games. I know it gives us a game to talk about, but tonight, Baltimore-Cleveland, although, again, like I said, this has been a crazy week here in our nation, so welcome back football, even if it is the Cleveland Browns we got to sit through, as they chase the Detroit Lions 0-16 record.
Well, and here's the good part. I don't have nobody playing for Thursday Night Football, so that's the good part. So I can just watch the North Carolina and Duke game. So it seems to me it looks like the Browns could be 0-16, but I think the Cleveland Browns could be more worse than the 0-16 Lions, because let's be honest, they thought RG3 was going to be like the quarterback, but if you look at his team is like very awful in terms of offense. They do have the wide receivers, but their offense is just so awful.
Oh, it really is. And, yeah, RG3 was going to be a long shot to return to what he showed as a rookie. I just think, injuries, I think there's a confidence level issue with him. But once again, it's injuries that, really derailed his season. I think putting all their eggs in that basket wasn't that great of a call. I mean, this Cody Kessler kid, he's playing all right. But, all right's not going to be good enough to get you a win. At least our Lions 0-16 team was pretty competitive in quite a few games. The Browns are a lot of times for about one half, and then it just catches up with them, and they're, they just lost one of their better defensive ends, and Carl Nassib, he's out now, and so that's going to hurt a defense that is already, if there's one thing about tonight's game I'll say, is that this is a good night. And I rarely say this, but this is a good night to start Joe Flacco. I mean, he's historically had success against Cleveland, but this year, quarterbacks in general are just having, nice success against Cleveland. They've given up, my stats are 22 passing touchdowns.
Wow.
And then last week, if you look at what I know you were happy, your Dallas Cowboys, think of the game that Ezekiel Elliott could have had if he played the fourth quarter, which he didn't. He rolled, I think, 92 yards and 2 touchdowns. Albert Morris came in and put up nice numbers. So we also like Terrence West tonight, which, again, you don't say often because he's been in a bit of a funk lately, but the Cleveland Browns have been a fantasy goldmine. We like Mike Wallace. He's had back-to-back 100-yard games, and, it seems to really be getting a rapport with Flacco. The only caveat I would put on all these great suggestions I'm putting for Baltimore is, once again, it's Thursday night. And Thursday night football games have been known, even in favorable matchups like this for an offense like Baltimore's, to still produce a stinker of a game just because of the shortness of the week. Guys haven't had a chance to physically recover. One last name I'll say that I like is a sneaky good pick is Dennis Pitta, the tight end for Baltimore tonight. Look what Jason Witten did last week. 134 yards, I believe, in the score. So, Cleveland they give out fantasy points like, candy on Halloween. So this is a nice night for the Ravens. Even though if you look at Flacco, he's only had CD passes, but he's got a big arm. He's got Steve Smith back. He's got Mike Wallace that can stretch, a defense, or he can take, like he did last week, a slant and go 95 yards for a touchdown. Or if you flip it to the Cleveland side, basically, depending on your league roster size, you could start Terrell Pryor. He's been a revelation here at wide receiver. I didn't think he'd be as good as he has been, so we like him. But then outside of that, Baltimore's been pretty tough against running backs, so you don't go Crowell. I'd say in a week where there's quite a few good quarterbacks on a bye, Tyrod Taylor's not playing this week. Obviously, Matthew Stafford's not. Derek Carr's not playing. So you could be in a bit of a bind. Andrew Luck's on a bye. Joe Flacco would not be a bad streaming quarterback for this week, and that's probably the last time I'll say this year. I mean, he went for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns in week 2 against Cleveland, so we'll take those numbers.
Right, and as I'm looking at the stats, by the way, right now I did see a stat about the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens defense has given away this season like 18.4, so that shouldn't be a problem for when they face against the Cleveland Browns. So I expect the Ravens get some garbage time points.
Yeah, as I said, I think it's in this game being at Baltimore, I like the Ravens tonight. It's just hard to like anything about Cleveland right now. They got to the World Series and they have the NBA championship. I believe the Cavaliers visited the White House today. So
right,
Cleveland can be happy about that. I'm not certain they're going to be happy about tonight's game.
That's why assuming like this Browns team could be way worse than the Detroit Lions, because the only thing about this difference between the Lions and the Browns has always been a bad franchise ever since they came in the league since 1999.
Yeah, and this is one of those games that's kind of a slap in the face because they're facing the franchise that used to be the Cleveland Browns that left and went to Baltimore and then ultimately won a Super Bowl. So that's just one more reason to. Well, you'd think that would be one more reason to fire up the Browns to try and win this game. And the problem is they just don't have enough talent, even if they're fired up, to play another team for 4 quarters. And I think that's why they may threaten to tie our Lions 0-16 record, or my Lions.
Right.
Better off this week, so I don't have that. I don't have that to look forward to.
Hey, yeah, you did mention that the Baltimore Ravens used to be the original Cleveland Browns. So I didn't forget about that. Well, there is a game that is going. I'm pretty much excited for this one for some odd reason. It is the New Orleans Saints and the Denver Broncos. Now, for the New Orleans Saints, of course, you have Drew Brees. He's actually doing well this season, by the way. And for the Broncos have gave up like 8 more fantasy points to running backs. So it's like we already know Denver Broncos have the defense, but it's not like it used to. So and plus too the quarterback situation. I think right now this season may not be the best QBs in terms for Denver, but wait till probably like next year. I think things will get better. So like this year, I just don't see Denver. They probably could make it to the playoffs, but I just don't see the quarterback situation is going to get any better. So I know this like rookie, so they'll progress as far for the season.
Right. As you often do, you hit the nail on the head talking about that. Yeah, the quarterback play, Trevor Siemian, he's obviously not going to be their quarterback in the future. That's Paxton Lynch, who's gotten used a little bit this year, didn't look great, but rookies generally don't. We're seeing that now with Carson Wentz coming back to earth and struggling. We still love Dak Prescott in the way he's playing, but he's got a premier running game, a great offensive line, a great tight end, and a great wide receiver. So he's got a bit more to work with, although the Broncos do have a pair of really good wide receivers. Simeon is a game manager. They're never going to let him open it up like Peyton Manning did before Peyton Manning got old all of a sudden. Or, just got old, but he suddenly looked like it last year. Simeon's always going to limit, I believe, Demaryius Thomas's value as well as Emmanuel Sanders. And now, unfortunately, the Devontae Booker at running back experiment, when C.J. Anderson went down, I was for one, excited to see, okay, Booker's going to be the number one guy. He's flashed some skills and limited usage. Well, he really hasn't stepped up and grabbed the job. Hasn't looked good in trying to grab the job. So last week we got a glimpse of Capri Bibbs, who's been around Denver for, I think this is his third year, mainly a practice squad guy, but now he's playing time. And, I think he had a 69-yard TD reception last week. He showed explosiveness that we haven't seen from Booker. So now we've got kind of a running back in committee there. Gary Kubiak has already said, the head coach of the Broncos, that Bibbs has earned more work. So he's going to be a bit of a role. So the Denver offense is confusing right now. You start Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders just because they're elite talents, and you hope at some point Simeon is able to throw the ball more than 7 yards and give one of these guys a big gain. But then you mentioned on the flip side, the Broncos are one of the tough defenses as far as wide receivers and quarterbacks, keeping them in check. They've only given up 6 touchdown passes, and they've intercepted the ball 8 times. They have a nice secondary. But Drew Brees is going to keep throwing the ball.
Exactly.
But what we need to try and figure out is who's going to lead the way as running back for them this week, because Mark Ingram had a very good week last week after fumbling his way into doghouse 2 weeks ago and being benched. And then, Tim Hightower, I'll tell you, he's had a great career resurgence after being out of the league for a couple of years. He was great in relief of injured Ingram last year. And when he's been asked to play, he had a good week last week as well. I believe they both scored a rushing touchdown. But the bottom line is, to me, is that Ingram is just the better talent. And as long as he doesn't fumble the ball, and obviously it looks like he learned his lesson, he didn't last week, I think he's the running back we want, because as you mentioned, where the Broncos have showed a crack in their armor as far as defensively, it's against the running game. So I think the Saints, again, like we said, they're going to take their shots. But they're also, not stupid enough not to realize that the Broncos have given up 7 rushing touchdowns, 982 yards rushing. And what we also like is that Denver's given up 2 receiving touchdowns to running back, and Ingram has actually been used in the passing game more. So I really like Mark Ingram this week. I'm a little bit down on rookie Michael Thomas, who's having a great year for New Orleans. But I think he's the most likely receiver to suffer from, how good Denver's been against the pass. So Brandon Cooks, he's always a threat to break, a 5-yard pass into a 60-yard gain, and he'll be playing out of the slot. And they also find other ways, bubble screens, to get him the ball. So the receivers are like Cooks more. I think you still start Thomas because the kid is in. He's kind of been the new Marcus Colston for that offense. But I love Mark Ingram. Start Drew Brees because he's Drew Brees. And the fact that it's at New Orleans is also nice. They're on their fast track. It's going to be a fun game to watch because, Denver is suddenly in a dogfight for the AFC West.
Correct.
With not only the Raiders, who they lost to, the Kansas City Chiefs, who are the most boring, team in the world to watch because they don't do anything great, but they don't do anything bad. So, Denver's they've got to figure out a way to keep themselves in the race with the deficiency that you mentioned at quarterback.
And by the way, for the Saints, they're like second in the league in terms of passing yards and second in the league in terms of passing touchdowns. So that should give some hope for the New Orleans Saints to win against the Denver Broncos.
I think they have a chance to, especially at home. And a struggling quarterback in Simeon, and you can't blame him for struggling. He's just not a great quarterback. He's the stopgap. We thought it was going to be Mark Sanchez when we signed him, and then Simeon beat him out. So this was always going to be a temporary gig for whoever started in Denver until Paxton Lynch was ready. And they end up having to turn it over to Paxton Lynch sooner rather than later if Simeon continues to struggle.
Exactly. And by the way, that game will be at 1 o'clock. So they're playing that game in our area. So just letting you know about that. All right. Next one. Wow, this is going to be very interesting. Okay. I have Blake Bortles as my quarterback facing against the Houston Texans. And by the way, the Texans give up like 4 fantasy points to QB. So they're at home. Jacksonville's at home. And then Kansas City, they're playing against the Carolina Panthers team who's like give up like 6 most fantasy points to QBs. And this time, Kansas City is going to play at Carolina. Because if you look at the Chiefs are more great at playing at home than it is on the road. Because sometimes you look on the road like, did Kansas City Chiefs win that game? And you got to admit, at the bye week, Carolina Panthers has been playing a little bit better. So it's like, okay, Alex Smith right now, he has 8 touchdowns and 2 picks, and then Blake Bortles, he 14 touchdowns and 10 picks. So it sounded like, wow, where you go from here then?
Yeah, I think just as far as potential to put a fantasy points, I like Blake Bortles over Alex Smith this week.
That's what I have starting.
Yeah, I think that's the smart move, especially considering that Spencer Ware, the running back in Kansas City, has cleared the concussion protocol. So he's going to be back in the lineup. And Kansas City just doesn't rely on the pass enough to really make Alex Smith, to me, in my estimation, a start over Bortles, because Bortles has so many chances. Even though it's a tough matchup, they've shown that if they're down by a lot, they're not willing to pull Bortles out of games, and he's racked up a lot of points in garbage time that we talked a little bit earlier. And so those points count just the same, whereas the Chiefs don't generally run up a big enough of a lead, and they won't do it against Carolina, who,
right.
This is a team, that I think really believes that they can still come back and make the playoffs. Especially considering that Atlanta has a history of faltering down the stretch, and we'll see if that does happen. But as long as the Panthers believe that, and they're playing better, and I believe Cam Newton will play better, it is going to be. It's nice for Carolina that Kansas City, they get Kansas City at home and not on the road, because the Chiefs are a different defense at home. They just seem to play better.
Exactly.
They may get Justin Houston back this week, which will really help them. But as far as, like I said, Bortles, yeah, he's not looking good. Although he did manage to hook up with Allen Robinson a bit more last week, so we like that. Houston has been a tough matchup, but Houston struggles to score points with Brock Osweiler at quarterback. So I know. Yeah, I think you're making the right decision. I would play Bortles over Smith all day long.
And plus, too, since J.J. Watt is not playing, so that should be more easy for the Jacksonville Jaguars to open up the passing game.
Yeah, and I believe Allen Hurns is on track to play. I think early in the week he missed a little bit of practice time, but that helps. Again, Julius Thomas can be a great weapon. It's just Bortles has struggled so badly. And I'm not even going to sit here and try to sell you on this could be the week that he puts it all together, because I'm not certain he'll put it all together this week. But what this will be is the week that he plays the entire game, whether they're up big or down big. They don't really have a running game. Chris Ivory looked a little bit better. T.J. Yeldon has just struggled most of the year. So they're going to put the ball in Bortles' hands, and that gives you the best chance for some big points there. And he's run the ball 33 times for 199 yards, and we love that from the quarterbacks. And he has 1 rushing score, so
thank you.
It'll be interesting.
Yes, thank you. That's why I always have you coming on for fantasy football wise.
That's what I'm here for.
Exactly. Okay, here's another one. I have 2 leagues on NFL.com, because that's where I usually play by leagues. The Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, so far right now, Pittsburgh is barely tied up with the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know why, but it seems like when I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Steelers give up 22nd most fantasy points to QBs, but still, I don't think the Steelers defense is all that. And then when I look at the Steelers offense, their offense is kind of what's going on? And plus, too, you got to admit, they also lost some players due to injury. So Dak Prescott right now, he's 12 touchdowns and 2 picks, and he's giving some a lot of fantasy points so far, 157, or depending on your fantasy, depending on your league. And he has 4 rushing touchdowns, so that's good. So, and the also cool part about the Cowboys is they're a top 10 team in terms of rushing. So I'm trying to see will the Pittsburgh, this is a very important game for Pittsburgh Steelers to get. And plus, too, and also, you got to remember, too, the Steelers are also playing for the AFC division, by the way. So it's kind of are they going to really stop the Cowboys rushing and Dak Prescott?
Yeah, I think they're going to have a hard time doing that. The main thing Pittsburgh actually has working for them this week is that Ben Roethlisberger will be, in his second game back from injury, and I believe people probably expected too much from him last week, not just because he was coming back from injury, but he has historically struggled against the Ravens. This is a tough matchup for them again because of what you just talked about in the Dallas offense. The Steelers have given up 8 rushing touchdowns to running backs and
Not good.
3 receiving touchdowns. Yeah, so we like Ezekiel Elliott against and one thing we do know, Dallas loves Ezekiel Elliott. They're going to feed him the ball, and again, what that does, which is so great for Dak Prescott, especially as a rookie quarterback, it just creates so much play action opportunity, and the linebackers are going to bite. That leaves Jason Witten open over the middle, when they get to the run, and it's not a running play. That also gives Des Bryant that extra half a second or a second to get over the top or to make a cut over the middle against the defensive back. So Des Bryant's going to be a weapon in play action. Witten, you could see Prescott. It was funny. I mentioned in my article 2 weeks ago when they won the game in overtime against the Eagles was the first touchdown pass that Jason Witten had caught. And he only caught 2 passes in that game. But I'm like, guess what? I think Dak Prescott's going to realize this is a Hall of Fame tight end. He knows how to get open. I need to use him more. And then you look at last week, 134 yards and a touchdown. So now you add Witten to Dak Prescott's plethora of weapons. Again, Ezekiel Elliott, great matchup. He would have had a monster game last week. He still had a great game. It would have been huge if he didn't sit out the whole fourth quarter, which is nice. And also, he's a rookie. You want to rest him. But this week, I think he has a big week against the Steelers. As far as the Steelers, you got to roll everybody out, even though Dallas has been tough. Surprisingly, with that defense, Rod Marinelli, again, a former coach here in Detroit that was the coach of our 0-16 team, is a great defensive line coach, and he's got that defensive line playing great. They've only given up 591 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. So they're going to have to figure out a way to get Le'Veon Bell the ball in the passing game. And of course, you start Antonio Brown. You have to. I don't trust any Steelers tight ends. Ladarius Green, signed in the offseason away from the Chargers, is supposed to make his debut this week. We'll see if that happens, but I don't start him right out of the gate. I start Antonio Brown. I start Le'Veon Bell. I start Roethlisberger. We just got news today that actually D'Angelo Williams won't even be back up this week because he had knee surgery on Wednesday. He's going to be out. It's going to be Trufant out of Michigan, I believe, is going to be the backup again. So,
I do know what you're talking about from Michigan. I can't think of his first name. I know his name. Rich. I forgot what his name. I know his. When you said Tucson, I remember that guy from Michigan with Brady Hoke. Brady Hoke's Wolverines. I remember him.
Oh yeah. Well, I think we can also remember. I believe he fumbled late in the game when he was actually filling in last season. I will look to try to get his name as we continue forward, but it's going to be a fun game to watch because it takes us back to the days of the Steelers and Cowboys playing in those Super Bowls.
Right.
And again, I love what the Cowboys are doing this year. I mean, they're quickly, in my eyes, becoming the favorite to come out of the NFC and go to the Super Bowl.
And
be making bold predictions.
And by the way, not only this team is very great on the rushing, but they're also good with the defense. So far, the Cowboys defense allowed like 17.5 points per game. I just found that. I was like, wow, this team's like really different from last year.
Yeah, they're stepping up. Oh, it's Fitzgerald Toussaint. That's his name. From Michigan. He'll be the backup running back this week. So should Le'Veon Bell go down, then it's going to be Fitzgerald Toussaint from Shawn's Michigan Wolverines stepping in.
That's what his first name was. Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
That's like, wait a second. Mm-hmm. Toussaint. I know that guy. It's Fitzgerald Toussaint. Thank you for that information. Now, here's another one, by the way, because there's a lot of games, by the way. Hopefully, week 10 should be all good since we got rid of this presidential election that flew in the World Series. By the way, your Lions do having a bye week, so that should be the good part. So, the Sunday Night Football, of course, that's one I'm very excited for. The Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the Seattle Seahawks got away with some bad calls on Monday night, so let's admit that because, like, when they play at home, you know they're going to get away with a lot of calls. So, since they're playing at New England, it's not going to be so easy. So, New England, you're having, like, two of these teams are playing defense, and Russell Wilson, I don't know the health effect of Russell Wilson with that offensive line. And then you have Tom Brady, of course. every time when Tom Brady plays, you always expect him to do like great things when it comes to football. But it just seems like the Patriots are going to beat the Seahawks. I just don't see the Seahawks coming into New England and just beat them. It's just something that tells me that New England is going to beat Seattle. But I think it's going to be a close game between those two.
Oh, I think it is too, and I think there were some encouraging signs from the Seahawks last week as far as Russell Wilson's concerned. First of all, he didn't roll up a ton of rushing yards, but on that first series, that was a designed running play that he ran in for a touchdown, and that let the Buffalo Bills know, hey, I can run the ball again. Yeah, I think we mentioned last week, he got his knee brace off, and like the week before that, he got the ankle brace off. So if he's getting healthier as far as being able to run the ball, then it's a whole different game from here on out when you face the Seahawks, because now you suddenly have to worry about Russell Wilson running again, which you hadn't had to. And what we also love is the way Jimmy Graham looked. That was the Jimmy Graham that played for the Saints. That was uncoverable. He's just too big. And then if he's going to be making these one-handed touchdown catches, we love that for Russell Wilson. Now, the Patriots have been pretty stout against tight ends. They've only given one touchdown pass to him all year.
Wow.
But you know they're going to force feed the ball to Graham. You can just see that happening. So I'm encouraged by Russell Wilson. I think you start him because he's starting to run the ball again. He finally gets his first rushing touchdown. I think that's a nice trend. You mentioned Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady's Tom Brady. You don't ever consider benching him when he's in the game. Even though the Seahawks are a strong defense, you just don't consider that. Of course, we love Gronk. Gronk's going to get his. And I also think a surprising play that people might think wouldn't work against the Seahawks defense is LeGarrette Blount. You can run the ball on them, and especially if you commit to it. And let me throw one more thing in there. Dion Lewis might actually make his debut this week. Let's keep an eye on that. Yeah, I mean, he wants to play. He's off the pup list. He's practiced all week. The latest report I read from Roto World is that he's pushing the coaching staff to get in there. So what that'll do for folks that have been using James White, who's been nice in place of Dion Lewis, you're going to want to go ahead and bench White. I don't know for certain we want to start Lewis until we see how much usage he gets, coming off a long layoff. But, we love Gronk. I think we also like Martellus Bennett in this game, maybe at a flex position, depending, who you have on a bye. Julian Edelman, we start in PPR leagues, although it concerns me that he only had one touchdown pass this year, and he's been targeted in the red zone 10 times. So there's some kind of disconnect there that Edelman's not converting at his red zone chances. But you don't bench Edelman just because he can also go off on any week. And again, it's like I said, especially in point per reception, you have to have him in there because he continues to get the look out of the slot. I'm looking forward to this game. I'm sure Pete Carroll hasn't enjoyed a week full of questions about why didn't you run the ball with Marshawn Lynch in the Super Bowl, but it doesn't stop me from looking forward to seeing these two go at it. I like the Patriots, though, because they're playing at home. Seattle's defense is a little weaker on the road. They don't have the 12th man drowning out teams so that they can't audible. So I like the Patriots at home, but I think it's going to be an entertaining game.
And just want to let you guys know that the NFL fined Richard Sherman for necessary roughness on Monday night. So just want to let you know about that, guy. Fantasy Sharks, Walton Spurlin on the program. Now, where can my listeners find you on social media? And after my show, you do another show after my show.
Yes, I generally do. Although I'll let everybody know that we are off tonight due to the fact that my co-host Gary Davenport has some other business he needs to take care of. I have some work I need to do. So we're taking a hiatus. We may take something to put up if we can all get our schedules together. But, this has been a crazy week, Shawn. So a lot of our work schedules got a little bit altered, and I've still got a couple of articles to finish. But anyway, you can find my stuff at fantasysharks.com. I have an article that goes up on Monday, Wally's World. I have an article that goes up on Wednesday, the Start Bench List. I have an article that's all defensive. It's an IDP piece. It's called The Blitz. It's on the premium part of Fantasy Sharks. That goes up on Thursdays. And then the article I got to make sure I finish tonight because I'm behind. It is a sleeper defenses for daily fantasy. The defenses you can get for cheap and then go out and spend that money on all the Arizona Cardinals this week because they play San Francisco and they're going to roll it up. But I'm out there. I'm at Walton Spurlin on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, Walton Spurlin. Send me a friend request. I'm a friendly guy. I'm everywhere, Sean.
Exactly. I have a feeling that not the Seattle game, the Arizona-San Francisco game, that could possibly be a bad game for the 49ers. I could just feel that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I will see you next week, by the way. So take care. You have a nice week in fantasy. So I'll talk to you next week.
I will talk to you next week, Sean. You have a great week as well.
You too. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Fantasy Sharks, Mr. Walton Spurlin to the program.